Eventually we'll get moderators, but right now we are a small clan. So this live is going to be about the twin flame journey. It's also to talk about my book Recall, which is about the twin flame journey, which I think would be a good idea to kind of talk about some of the perspectives and the connections of gaslighting, connections of trauma, connections of past life trauma. And so the first thing I'm going to do is work on reading A Story of Devotion by The White Rabbit and the Full Moon, A Story of Devotion. This is from the book The Zen Monkey and the Lotus Flower, 52 Stories That Will Change Your Life, and then I'll read an excerpt on The White Rabbit, on Recall. The White Rabbit and the Full Moon, A Story of Devotion. Once upon a time, there was a little white rabbit named Luna who lived in a peaceful forest. Luna was not like the other hares. While the other hares slept in their burrows at sunset, Luna stayed awake to admire the full moon. She was fascinated by the beauty and purity of the moon and considered it her role model. Every month, when the full moon appeared in the sky, Luna sat on a hill and admired its beauty. She tried to be as pure and beautiful as the moon. Luna led a simple and virtuous life. She shared her food with others, helped the old and sick animals in the forest, and lived in harmony with nature. One day Luna saw the moon slowly getting darker. She watched with concern as the moon was covered by a dark cloud. Luna thought the moon was in danger and decided to help it. She jumped high into the air, hoping to reach the cloud and save the moon, but despite her efforts, she could not reach the clouds. Luna was disappointed, but she did not give up. Night after night, she tried to jump as high as she could. She even forgot to eat and drink and sacrificed her sleep to help the moon. The other animals in the forest admired Luna's devotion and unwavering faith. They came together and decided to help Luna. They built a huge ramp out of leaves and branches to bring Luna closer to the moon. On the next full moon night, Luna jumped off the ramp and reached the dark cloud. With a powerful push, she dispersed the cloud, and the moon shone bright and clear again. Luna happily fell back to earth, exhausted but satisfied. Since then, if you look closely on a clear full moon night, you can see the silhouette of a little rabbit on the moon, and the animals in the forest always remember the devotion and sacrifice of Luna, the white rabbit who saved the moon. What can we learn from this story? Devotion and passion. Luna showed us what it means to be completely devoted. Despite the difficulties, she did not let them deter her from her goal. We can learn from this devotion by showing passion and determination in our own lives, no matter how unattainable our goal may seem. Selflessness and sacrifice. Luna showed a willingness to sacrifice her well-being for something greater. She reminds us that true satisfaction often lies in selflessness and service for the good of others. The power of faith. Despite all obstacles, Luna firmly believed that she could save the moon. Her faith gave her strength to keep going and achieve her goals. We too use our faith as a source of strength to navigate through difficult times and achieve our goals. Community support. The other animals in the forest helped Luna in her mission to save the moon. They showed that community and cooperation can help us achieve our goals. We should always remember the importance of supporting others and accepting their support. So, pretty interesting. I love these books. So this is the book I read this from, to give you an idea of what I was, and this is becoming one of my favorite books. And then I'm going to read, I don't know, we'll see what I come up with. This is going to be erotic, so if you're not into erotica, I won't say much, but I am going to read it. So this is the book we're looking at right here, Recall, for our book club. The first book that we're going to read is Recall. After that, it'll be an amazing amount of different books. on esoteric ascension, manifestation, and I'm sure in our conversations we'll be talking about shadow work and healing. But let's begin. So this is chapter 12 from Recall. The moon takes the sun. The night glimmered with stars and a crescent moon. Let me start again. The night glimmered with stars and a crescent moon. Creo was in deep sleep, for I had given him the gift of my mouth to his member. He had drunk clay jugs of wine, so I knew that hours would pass before he awoke. I managed to dress myself in the lad's garments, loincloth, tunic, leather belt, sandals, cape, and the short staff Creo had gifted me. I crawled out into the night. I had no plans, but I hoped that I would find my mare that would bring me home without guidance in the dark of night. My heart squeezed with pain as I made my escape, yet he had given me no choice. Whenever I had asked news of the battle, of my people, he ignored me. I had to find them and secure my children's safety by any means, which included sending them to Egypt, to my brothers, where they would be safe from harm. I covered my head with the hood and crawled past the many tents and fires, spiriting myself to the encampment of horses that stood not far from the circle of tents. I could not see and called out to my mare's name. I heard her neigh. I crawled towards the trees, where a round fence had been built to contain the horses. She must have caught my scent, for she approached me, walking with her slow, careful gait, and lowered her head. I swung upon her back. I had to take that fence in one jump, or else I would die. I realized my foolishness, but then understood that again I had no choice. The gods had blessed me, for we had ample room to canter and jump. She took the fence like a winged horse and landed without a sound of any consequence upon the soil. I patted her neck and leaned my face against the side of her arched neck. We rode hard and fast as she jumped over small ravines and small streams that surprised me with their presence. And still, she cantered until we stood before the tall gates of our city. It was shut to any outside world, so I had to call up to the guards that stood sentinel. They laughed at my claim of being their queen, even when I drew my cloak away from my face. "You, queen?" one guard taunted. Another laughed. "You are but a dirty little peasant." How stupid they were. They did not even recognize my mount. I pulled aside my cloak and with both hands tore my tunic to my waist. My bare breast pointed to the sky. "I am Queen Bakor," I shouted to the winds, and I will never understand why. But the large doors opened and I was allowed in. I entered and continued past the exterior of the palace and came to the second portal guarded by the pair of stalking lions. The Queen, Queen Bakor is among us." The shouts of soldiers and courtiers brought my Malik to greet me, and the children at his heels. He could not contain his joy, and though in front of his subject, he allowed tears of joy and relief to wet his gaunt cheek. I slid off my mare, and my most beloved rushed me within a circle of their force, of their love. We stood, clinging thus for a long time. I was surprised, for my children would not let me move without moving their tight little fists, gripping my arms and my waist. They would not let go, and so we moved together up the stairs into my rooms. We fell together upon our large bed and clung to each other until I fell into deep sleep that lasted 2 sunrises. When I awoke, Malik was lying next to me, his head in his hand. I saw that he had not eaten well in days. His cheeks were sunken deep, and his eyes looked like dark pools of sorrow. "You are returned to me, my sweet Bakor," he said, managing to smile. I rubbed the sleep dust out of my eyes and rose. I was nude. Amma must have removed my clothing while I slept. "I would like a bath," he said, finishing my sentence, and wearing a wide smile that softened the lines that had appeared overnight and suddenly creased his pale face. "Yes," I sighed. The calm of his gaze hovered upon my eyes and trailed the journey which I followed to the bath I so desired. It had been poured. I jumped out of the bed and ran to the bronze creations My nose wrinkled in disgust at my own stench. I stepped one leg and felt my body melt in response. Once my body was immersed in water, I allowed my head to lie back against the wide lip of the tub and felt my whole being's breath exhale. A large bronze tray was brought to our rooms with large jugs of water and wine, an array of roasted meats, flatbread, figs, and green melons. My mouth was famished to taste, and for a moment my hunger confused my choice, but choice I did, and choose I did. I settled on a large leg of fowl and ate with great pleasure, whilst I savored the sweet flavors of figs and melon. When I was done, Malik poured a goblet of water and wine, which I drank down fast. He refilled my goblet, and again it was gone in the time of a hummingbird, alights from a flower to the sky. He smiled, all the while humming a most beloved song to me. The sun settles his golden rays upon the lands. The gods gave us lives of eternal doom, for we are but playthings in their hands. The moon weaves her magic upon the loom. Come, my sweet love, let us play in the water. Come, my sweet love, let us be children again. Eternal, 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 my love. Our souls are eternal, my love. Life is but an instant of love and fear. Come, my sweet love, let us disappear. Eternal, 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 my love. Our souls are eternal, my love. I sat soothed by the truth of his song. I adored his voice. The sound of it lulled me into a place of calm. I felt wrapped within the warmth of his tone, which drew me within the garden of his love. I no longer wished to eat. I sat back. Every part of me became like the water I bathed in. News of the war, I asked. Tell me what happened, he whispered. I saw him swallow hard. I handed him my cup, but he waved it away. You must eat, my love, I urged him, but he waved his hand, for even I knew he could not eat. The day you left our camp, he began, we waged a battle that lasted until the sun no longer lit the sky. We waited till the sun rose and saw his men rise from every corner of the mountains, tall as cedars, men the like I have never seen. I knew then that Ishtar had deserted us. We lost many men. We were cornered. We fought our way out. We managed a retreat to the palace. I gazed into the black pool of his eyes and saw despair and something else, something I had never seen in them. Fear? He continued his tale, looking out towards the open windows that opened to the large porticos. There must be a way, I murmured. If there is, we cannot find it. He stood up and paced upon the large stone slabs. I've consulted my astrologers, my generals, my captains, but none can find the chink in that barbarian's army. He sunk upon our bed, hands in his face, lost in the despair that swirled about him. He, unlike myself, had been trained not only in the ways of diplomacy, but in the art of war. I was still for a long time. I sought to gather some wisdom, a whispered word of guidance from Isis or Ishtar or whatever god could help us now. No answer came, only silence, the quiet of our breathing and the soft whispered sounds of curtains fluttering and the soft winds that blew in from the east. We must get the children to Egypt, I stated. It is too late to get them out safely. He saw my look of disbelief. He has every valley covered by soldiers. He must have over 200 legions. I got out, I shot back. You got out because you came back to us. You did not try to leave the valley. His voice was devoid of feelings, and yet I knew he raged to ask what I had done with this barbarian since I had left his side. My heart sank. I realized how trapped we were. How could we save our children? That troubled the uppermost part of my mind. I had to find a way out for them. The day was bright with sun and soft winds. I called for my slave, Amma, to come. She brought scented oils and herbs that would wash the dust and dirt from my hair. She led me to my long divan outside and plucked any offending hair that grew between my thighs and between the creases of my arms. Then she did my most favorite of things and rubbed my skin with scented oils of herbs and crushed rose petals, digging the tips of her fingers upon my back, neck, hips, and trailing her hands upon my thighs and finally the bottoms of my feet. I was lost beneath her care and wished Malik would allow her to heal his wounded body. Amma presented me with an indigo sheath embroidered with silver threads. I sat before the large circle of my copper reflector as she brushed my hair and plaited the length to one side. I had been deep in thought and had found a solution, but only 2 would be able to get out of our valley. More than 2, and the plan would fail. That night, I entered the war room. Malik was alone, sitting by clay tablets, reading a missive from a neighboring king. He looked up and smiled. This king will not aid us in this matter. He threw the tablet to the floor, where it shattered into 1,000 small pieces. Which king? I wondered. Does it matter? He responded. I shook my head. My eyes scanned over the miniature terrain Malik's spies, engineers, and slave had created. I saw Kriu's soldiers spread on every peak of our beloved mountains. I wondered at a particular mountain peak that held many caves, confusing catacombs to anyone unfamiliar with our land. My Nubian slave and I knew the caves like the palms of our hands. It would take days and they would have to travel by night, but they would be able to walk and climb the ravines and find shelter by day within and move thus until they were too far away to pursue. They would also be using the stars and crescent moon for light. I knew that my Nubian would guard Damien with his life, but the journey would take 2 summers, and I knew that once they arrived, my brothers would care for our son, and perhaps the Pharaoh would help Damien regain the land. Though I carried a quart of blood of Egyptian Pharaoh in my mother's side, 2 generations back, I could not rely on the goodwill of blood relations, for my grandmother had been a princess of the lower order. Still, I could hope. For the whole of my life had been a place of gold and light, and soft moments infused with laughter and passions. All had been done with ease and little care for the future. Now, time had become my enemy, a foe that neither attacked me directly nor threatened me with words or actions. It just swung through space like a curved sword to cut down anything that stood in its path. Time had become a mad being, and there was nothing I could do to stop it from bringing more destruction upon the ones I loved. There was no future foretold, only what we made of it. So it was that, and then that I began to realize the idea of destiny and free choice. I could allow destiny to take my whole being and do with it as it may, or I could fight and make choices as to what I did and did not accept to be my fate. In other words, I could change my destiny if I should die, then let them decide how and when. I would not be like cattle on the day of slaughter. So I chose. I told Malik of my plan. Egypt was 2 summers away from our land, so the journey would be long and arduous. Gold would be their messenger to safety. I trusted my Nubian to show my son the way. When I sat at Malik's feet and began to weave the intricate detail of my plan, I could feel his eyes upon me. But as I spoke, I was gazing out the large windows that unfolded the wide expanse of a moving indigo sky, bright stars and large black billowy clouds of the silhouette of mountains and the welcoming scent of jasmine caught upon the gift of a breeze. When I was done, I locked eyes with Malik. It was then that I saw his tears. I rose and embraced his large head against my breast and cradling him, sending soothing tones from my voice. His body shook and shook, a storm of grief and shame. There was nothing you could have done, my love, I whispered. Still he trembled, the wild winds within him no longer violent, but sighing out of his soul. I helped him thus until he lay still in my arms. He unlocked his hands from around my waist and rose. He turned his